Okay, it is 5:31 p.m. We are here for the regular meeting of the City of Cape Coral Charter School Governing Board. I am Chair Christopher Jackson, and I will call this meeting to order. I think we will start with our color guard. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Let's do a moment of silence first, please. Thank you very much. That will lead us to our Pledge of Allegiance. So if we could have color guard, please present the colors. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Colors. Right. Face. Forward. March.
Thank you. All right. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Ataseli.
Present.
Jackson.
Present.
Long, District 6.
Here.
Michaels.
Present.
Manaya. Pease.
Present.
Stout. Absent. Parent Representatives. Hoagland, OHS.
Present.
Shade, OMS.
Present.
Soto, OES. Soto, OES. Rizzo, OEN.
All present. We will move on to our approval of the agenda, regular meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We will move along to public comment. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per individual, 45-minute total comment time. Did I miss something? I'm sorry.
Approval of the agenda?
That's what we just, oh, I'm sorry, approved minutes. Approval of the agenda, regular governing board meeting. Can I get a motion, please?
I would like to make a motion to...
Please.
Can I make a motion?
Nope, but we had our trustee companion, Dr. Manaya, to make our motion for
There was
us.
something in 16A.
Yes, I would like to recommend to the board that you amend new business item 16A and remove the phrase pending city council approval. Everything else should stay the same. But according to our attorney, we no longer need city council approval on this agenda item.
So I move that we delete pending city council approval from item 16A, which is on the last.
May I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. And we approved the agenda already, yeah. Next is our public comment. Again, public comments limited to 3 minutes per individual, 45 minutes total. Do we have any public comment? Seeing none, I will close public comment and we will move to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve our consent agenda? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any opposed? Yes, I'm sorry.
We do
I
not.
think it was, so, moving on, okay, I'm sorry, moving on, no item on the consent agenda. Brings us to superintendent's report, item number 9.
Oh, but there we go. Good evening, Board. Jackie Collins, Superintendent. I am going to discuss and review with you the strategic plan that was developed in the fall of 2023. But before I do that, I just want to give a big shout out and thank you to the foundation for the Lighthouse Award dinner that we had on Friday evening. And boy, it was quite a night. And it was a beautiful event. And I really think, I mean, they're always great events, but I really think the takeaway from this event was the warmth and the heartfelt speeches that the winners gave this year. It really was, they felt valued. They felt that, they were appreciated by not only their colleagues, the administrative team, and the foundation. So I'm sure Gary's here, or Jen will speak about that event today, but I wanted to give my own thanks to that team for all that hard work that they put into that event, because it was phenomenal. And I'm wondering, are we growing out of that space? Because it was tight. It was very tight. Every seat was filled, but it was beautifully done. So thank you, Foundation. Okay, on to the strategic plan. Strategic Plan 2024 through 2027. I always have to insert some beautiful pictures of our youngsters working on their STEM projects. These happen to be kindergartners working on a coding project. Okay, I'm going to start this presentation with 2 of the most recent awards that we've received. First is being the Oasis Charter School System is a high-performing charter school system. We just received this designation this year in March, even though we've been asking since 2021. All four schools for the last 3 years have received a grade of A. The requirement is a B or higher. We have no financial reports received all financial reports received gave unqualified audit opinions, and we have no school financial emergency. The beauty of being a high-performing charter school system is that we can replicate our system. Because it is high-performing, we can take our system and expand if we so desire. We can engage in 15-year charter school agreements, which we already do, and it does reduce our annual administrative fee on the first 250 students from 5% to 2%. Now, the savings I thought was going to be much more significant than it is. It's about $50,000, I think, once it's all said and done, approximately that as a savings for us. Since we only pay the administrative fee on the first 250 students, not on total enrollment, it's a significantly less figure. But nonetheless, savings is always good. And then we are now schools of excellence, 3 out of the 4 schools for the 2022-23 school year. And what that means is that the percentage of possible points earned in a school grade calculation is in the 80th percentile or higher for those schools. Now, grade components consist of proficiency, learning gains, lowest 25%. There are a lot of calculations, there are a lot of points that go into that calculation, and in 3 of the 4 of our schools we have earned that, and Jackie Corey guarantees us that the next school year the high school will be a part of that, that designation. This designation lasts for 3 years. The beauty of this being a school of excellence means that a variety of things, but most important, we can exempt ourselves from the school start times that are coming into effect in 2026, which we will consider. I'm trying to think, what are some of the other benefits? The big one was the school, and class size. The class size calculation will be based on school average, not on grade level average. That could influence us just a little bit, even though we do meet class size as it is currently. So we're very happy to share those 2 new awards that have come our way. Okay, so in this latest strategic plan, in the meetings that we had, what we decided was not to change the vision and mission statement. We liked what we had. We truly believe this. Our plan engages both of these goals head on. We still believe that we educate our students to be responsible, critical thinkers who are going to compete in a dynamic global workforce. And in addition, our vision holds that we believe that everyone can succeed in a specialized learning environment that's nurturing and secure, supported with meaningful community partnerships. Our core values also have not changed. We reflected on them. We think that they should stay the same. We are student-focused. We focus on high expectations and a rigorous curriculum. We provide engaging learning environments, and we have meaningful community partnerships that we cultivate, that we are pursuing for a variety of reasons, and I'll share that when we get deeper into our goals. These are our accountability systems. We are accredited by Cognia. We have won not only the Circle of Excellence, but we've also been awarded the School System of Distinction for our high ratings in our accreditation scores. We are a grade A system, held accountable by the school district, not only the school district of Lee County, but the Department of Education. And all of our educators are certified as a requirement in the state of Florida. These are our partnerships. Of course, we have the governing board, we have the school district of Lee County, and the city of Cape Coral, who also holds our charter. Okay, these are the three strategy goals that we've come up with, and what we found was that the three goals that we had in our previous strategic plan were important enough to keep the same. What we've done is we've refined where we've come and where we want to go, maintaining these three plans. So they have not changed. Student achievement is strategy 1, continuous improvement is strategy 2, and strategy 3 focuses on community engagement. Wanted to sneak this in. These are our elementary STEM competitors for robotics. We have Oasis South in yellow and Oasis North in red. Okay, goal 1, student achievement. Our goal, what the committee decided to do, was to create an aligned and relevant academic achievement plan that will serve our students and give us the opportunity to expand our system. So student achievement is going to look like this. We kept it short and sweet. We have 4 objectives. We're going to develop an aligned K-12 curriculum, an innovative curriculum. We're going to integrate resilience learning and develop professional teaching goals. And the way we have gone about accomplishing this, it's been in the works for quite a while, is that we're going to implement an AVID program. An AVID program is an overall platform, or you could call it a framework that provides a unified instructional strategy component that we will implement K through 12, and also a common language that we will be using K through 12 that will focus on improved academic achievement. AVID has 4 domains: instruction, system support, leadership, and culture. And we believe that this AVID alignment will provide for a more of an innovative learning platform for our students, and will incorporate best teaching strategies for our teachers. It also ties in with professional development, because we're going to have extensive professional development on the implementation of AVID, starting at the top. I'll have professional development on what a system-wide approach looks like. The leadership will have their approach on their own school implementation, and then we'll be bringing a troop of about 50 instructors, teaching professionals over the summer to our AVID training, so that we can have on-site instructional groups that can act as leaders and coaches and mentors for the rest of the team. So bringing on the AVID program, we believe, will do all these things for us. And in addition, we're also going to pursue the interest of learning what a Cambridge system looks like K through 12. We now have Cambridge in the high school. Provides a lot of great benefits for our high school students that are seeking post-secondary education. But what does it look like at the elementary level and the middle school level? If we prep them, our students, just like we would do for these AVID strategies, and we prep them for Cambridge, the potential to have a Cambridge curriculum at the high school level, this could also add to the rigor and the alignment that we're looking for. So we're talking here about a 3 to 5 year implementation plan. This is not going to happen overnight. It takes a long time to implement a framework. It takes a long time to get buy-in from your colleagues and constituents because they have to buy into the program and understand its importance in order to use it. And the Cambridge program, we're going to start investigating the fall of this year, and we will roll out that implementation as we move forward the next couple of years. And then the last objective here is to integrate resilience learning into all of our curriculum plans. Right now, we have resilience learning as a separate curriculum that we teach in isolation. It doesn't make sense to do that. Resilience education involves the incorporation of standards that feature character development, personal responsibility, mentorship and citizenship, and critical thinking and problem-solving skills. So if we integrate that into the curriculum, which AVID does and Cambridge does automatically, we think we can do this as an incorporated skill, not something separate. Do you want to ask questions as we go along with these goals, or do you want me to continue? And the goal is to, now that we have a strategic plan committee, the goal is to meet monthly so that we can update the committee and we can make a monthly presentation on these goals to the board on a regular basis so you understand the process that we're going through. We can't really dive any deeper into this goal right now until we have our training, which is going to take place in June over the summer. And once we really realize what this plan looks like, we'll be able to communicate on a better level how this affects the goals and the implementation of these goals and the meeting of the goals. Anybody have any questions so far? Okay. Strategic goal number 2 involves continuous improvement, and this has everything to do with identifying, recruiting, and retaining highly qualified staff in a variety of ways, providing the most competitive salary benefit that we can, developing a shared educator value, and room for and opportunities for professional development across the board. And here in this goal, we have 4 objectives. We need to recruit, retain qualified staff. There are a variety of ways that we desire to do this. We have a committee already established that went to the Smithsonian over the summer. We are looking to hire diverse educators that meet our student population. We have a rising Hispanic population. We're trying to recruit teachers of the same culture, but also male teachers, and a variety of teachers outside of STEM that will come in and service our students in the ways that we need them to do that. Finding STEM teachers is very difficult, so that, of course, is always a priority. Those upper-level technical positions, higher-level math, higher-level science, and we have a plan in place in order to attract them and to bring them in. A lot of the idea around that is to reach out of Lee County, go to other institutions within the state of Florida, sometimes historically Hispanic institutions, some historically Black institutions, but most importantly, those institutions on the East Coast that have these larger teaching populations that they produce. We automatically reach out to FSW, FGCU. They do produce educators, but at small levels, 25 in the course of a semester or a year, 46. We're competing with Lee County for those very few teachers, so we need to go out and recruit from outside of our comfort zone and see if we can bring them in from other areas. We're also working on a live dashboard so that the board will be able to see how we're recruiting and who we're recruiting. And we're also going to focus on developing a Grow Your Own program, because what we found when we went to Washington, D.C. was the most effective way to develop a teacher source, a resource base, is to do it from within. So if we can develop a coursework that we have at the high school where we can recruit students that wish to become teachers, have a course where they can go into the elementary and middle school, see what teaching is all about, get them involved as far as that's concerned, and then hopefully send them off to college, but recruit them when they come back in with the promise of a position. So that's something we'll be working on as well. We also have developed stipend for teachers that are interested in getting their collegial coaching requirements so that they can have an intern, so that we host more interns in our programs from our local colleges and universities. And we find that when we host interns, they generally want to come back and they want to continue to teach in our system. We currently have 2 teachers now that we have graduated from our system, who have gone to a local college and university, who have come back and are employed in our school system. One at North and the other one at the middle school. And do we have one at the high school currently? I can't remember. Where's Jackie? I don't think we do yet. Where's Anna Martin? Anna Martin? She's at the high school? She's one of our students that came back. Okay. 2.2 has to do with educator development. We are, like I said, we're working on a coaching and mentoring onboarding program to onboard new teachers to our system. But also, it's a series of onboarding procedures that our APs and our lead teachers are going to develop so that when they come on board, we'll coach them and mentor them through the processes that we have. And it'll be a maintained system that throughout the year we can work with them to make them comfortable in all the processes that take place when you come on as a new teacher. We have the grade book. How do you get into the grade book? How do you log in from home? How do you develop lesson plans and submit them? There are so many. It's a multifaceted project that we need leaders to work on. So the APs will do this for us. They'll develop it, and then the lead teachers will help maintain the onboarding system so that when the principals go in to evaluate them, they're already they hit the ground running. The 2.3 talks about refining the educator evaluation process. We currently use the Marzano evaluation plan. The beauty of implementing AVID is that the AVID teaching and learning strategies coincide with Marzano, so that once we give these teachers the tools, the in-depth tools, and the opportunities to use these teaching strategies, for example, collaborative study groups, asking higher-level questions, Socratic seminars, philosophical chairs, we will have the ability to evaluate them in a more deeper fashion, because they'll be implementing not only the AVID requirements, but also the requirements that we have currently in place in Marzano. So Marzano and AVID, the research is compounded, so we have a better avenue to give teachers the tools they need in their toolbox and then properly evaluate them based on what they know. And then, of course, 2.4, developing workforce pathways. We're going to try to improve our alliances with community business partners to develop these workforce pathways. Not only job fairs, which we've done this year, but bringing people in as guest speakers so that we're exposing our elementary students and our middle school students to careers that exist in the 21st century. And then we can expose them to vendors and corporations and businesses that exist in our community for those that decide not to go on to post-secondary education, but want to go into the workforce first. And Jackie and her team did a great job this year with not only a college job fair, we had 30-some odd vendors that came, but also a workforce job fair in which we had a variety of different organizations present that spoke to our kids. And we had a lot of interest in leaving high school and going right into the workforce. So that is already underway. And then, of course, our last goal is community engagement. We really need to build and nurture community alliances for a variety of reasons. And we've got, again, 4 objectives that we think are important. The first is brand expansion. We have a brand. We've already developed that brand over the last 3 to 5 years, but what we really need to do now is market that brand. We need to get the word out about all the wonderful things that we do. We also need to control and manage the brand's image, and we need to work on our public reception. There are things that we should be telling the local community on a regular basis, what we do, how we do it, why we're doing it, and that involves meeting with city council and updating them on the great things that we do, meeting with the city manager, focusing on our Facebook pages. I mean, there are a lot of great things that are happening, and unless we start talking about it regularly, people don't know. Our system has won a tremendous amount of awards in a variety of different areas. I don't know that people know that. So we need to communicate that. 3.2, we're talking about cultivating economic allies. We're going to garner those community partnerships for subject matter expertise. We need to develop internships. We need to develop mentorships. We need to work on promoting our school-to-work certification programs, and all this has to do with who's out there in the community that share the same vision and mission that we do, so that we can send our students out into the world prepared and ready. 3.3, we're addressing increasing volunteer opportunities. Clearly in this committee, the strategic goal or strategic plan committee, the parents said they want to know what's going on in the school system. They want a one-stop shop. They want to go to one place and know what kind of volunteer opportunities are out there. They want volunteer opportunities to be tracked. And there's such a variety of different places where we share our message. They want it to be consolidated so that it's simplistic. So we've already put some things in place here. We're piloting an app at the middle school. It's a one-stop shop location for information for those parents. It's at the middle school. Parents and guardians can go into Donnie's app and look for not only volunteer opportunities and sign up for them, but they can find out what events are happening, what athletic events are going on, times and dates. They can find documents. They can buy school lunch. They can call in sick. They can look up grades. So it's a fabulous program that so far has, Donnie's received accolades for it. But in addition to that, we're going to invest in a new parent check-in system. We've had Keep and Track for years. It no longer tracks parent involvement in a systematic way for us. So we're looking at Visit You, which is a new, more improved system that will take a driver's license and do a national check, background check, and the required checks that need to happen. But in addition, it will, the parents will be able to log in their hours so that we can see who's doing their volunteer hours and who's not. So that is something that will be purchased in the upcoming school year and will be implemented. And then objective 3.4 is developing funding support. We need to develop fundraiser ideas. We need to raise money for resources and teacher incentives. And we have formed an overall community engagement committee that I would like our PIO officer to chair. That's Kathleen Paul Evans. She's in charge of marketing. She's in charge of the branding already. She writes our press releases. It's logical for her to be the person involved and in charge of this particular committee. And a subcommittee of this committee will be a fundraising effort so that we plan events that will raise not only awareness, but will bring in funding. One of the events that we spoke about was coming up with a gala where people, pay for a dinner. All funding goes to a specific need of the charter school system, whatever that need may be. Could be teacher bonuses for that year. It could be for a large expense like textbooks. She's got already some ideas about doing an art walk, silent auctions, things along those lines. We're a Purple Heart community here in Cape Coral. We should be a part of the Purple Heart event that takes place at our school system. So we're going to try to come up with something along those lines. So there's a lot involved in the community engagement, and that committee will be the ones that will orchestrate and brief me, and then we will brief the board on the progress that we make in that respect. Okay, and that's pretty much the basis of what the committee designed when we had our meetings. We've already formalized a lot of the behind-the-scenes functionalities that we think will meet these goals over time. Nothing is going to take place now and be done it's not a check mark. It's something that is a process that has to be developed over time. So because of the plan, we have 5 committees as a result. We have the strategic plan committee that the board chair will be sitting on along with me and the principals. We have the community engagement committee. We have the onboarding, recruitment, and retention committee that will be chaired by our HR manager. And we have the, what am I forgetting? Finance committee that we need still to discuss. That's 4. And our 5th one, sorry, it's been a long day. Recruitment and retention, student achievement committee. And the student achievement committee only logically should be chaired by the administrative team and myself, because that has to do with the curriculum, the alignment, and things along those lines. So those are the 5 committees that we have in place that will effectively help us meet the goals of the strategic plan. Does anybody have any questions?
I'd like to start, not questions, but a lot of comments to go along with it. First of all, presentation was amazing. Thank you. It's well thought out, well planned. I think that it captured just about all the essence of what we discussed at the strategic plan with all the stakeholders involved there, the teachers, the administrative staff, members of our community. So I think it really encompassed what everybody was looking for in the strategic plan. So that's great so far. So can you discuss maybe a little further about maybe the start times that are going to be a possibility for us since we are now a highly achieving school?
That has to do with the School of Excellence Award that we received from this Department of Education. They give a very basic outline saying that we can be exempt if we so desire. We need to do some research on that because it sounds great, but this designation is only for 3 years and it's a revolving door. You have to continue with the designation. We have to have all of our schools on board in order to avoid changing start times because the high school, for example, if the high school didn't receive that designation, they would have to change their start time. Now, changing one as opposed to changing all start times would be easier, but we really have to dig further into that, and I don't know how well that's been thought through yet.
Sure.
So as soon as we know more about that, we can share.
Great that it's
about that.
possibly an option for us because that could
Right.
be a game changer for our school. And it's another reason why we need to continue to be a highly effective school, right? It's good motivation, right? As far as goal number 1, the student achievement, I think vertical alignment is what we've been looking for a long time. The AVID approach is going to be great. We're one of the only schools that can do this as well because we are a K through 12 school. Most other
That's
schools
the
do not
beauty.
have vertical alignment. They go to another middle school who teaches a completely different way, has a different model, a different approach. Our kids are going to be way ahead of the curve because they're going to stay with us K through 12, and they're going to know the ACE program and things all the way through. We've already got the maker spaces in place for them and things like that. So vertical alignment is already begun at our schools, and I think it's going to go to the next level, which is great as well.
And the goal with AVID is potentially to become a showcase school system where other schools in the state of Florida and the country can come in and see this alignment and the best teaching practices being utilized. So that would be the ultimate goal.
Absolutely. As far as goal number 2, on qualified staff, I think that is very different than just staff, right? These are the people we want to be recruiting and we want to be going after, is the qualified, the teachers that are amazing, the teachers that have the passion and have the academic rigor and qualifications to do this. And that's one of the reasons that sets us apart, I think, from the Lee County School as well. So as far as community engagement, I agree that we need to broadcast all of our exceptional things that we do. We don't do enough of that because we achieve awards almost monthly with our amazing little school. So we need to let everybody out there know for sure. And I think there's no better person to do that than Miss Kathleen Paul Evans, who's going to chair that and well thought out for that position. As far as 3.3, I think we all know I'm a big proponent of volunteering, so I think that that's amazing that we're going to start trying to reincorporate that. I know we got hit with Corona and everything kind of fell by the wayside with that, but we can slowly start to implement that back, because I think that what we heard from a lot of the parents out there was that that's what they were craving, that's what they wanted in our system, especially in the elementary schools. So, when do we think that the said committees will start to be able to report to us as a board?
I would say we start, well, we can try to start as early as May. I think when we're talking about the Student Engagement Committee, we really need to be trained, and we need to go and take the training first, and that doesn't happen until June.
Sure.
So I would say that the majority of those items will present in our August meeting, as we start the following school year.
Perfect. We could maybe stagger them and have them coordinated on different times, and we learn all about the great things that are happening. Which brings me to my last point, which is the dashboard. That is great that we're going to be utilizing this, because in the past, we've created our strategic goals, and some of them fall by the wayside. They're very hard to monitor the progress of them. But I think with this particular thing, I think Dr. and I recommended as well, is we can really look at the strategic goal and see the progress rather than it just being elusive, right? So that's great that we'll start using that as well. So I'm sure we have some other comments, questions. Ms. Exel?
Yes, I did have one question. I thought I heard you mention an app that you're working on, that maybe we could get all of the sort of activities and information for parents to access. And I was wondering, would that be for all the schools?
Yes.
Hopefully? Okay.
Yes, Donnie's piloting it this year. It's something that you can download from the App Store, and it's wonderful because everything is right there. There's nowhere else to go. You can find any piece of information you want via link or document, and the other schools will pick it up in the following school year.
It's already been very well received. I've heard from many parents, and my wife included. She loves it. So it'd be great to implement that in the other schools as well. Thank you, Keisha. Dr. Nye?
Yes, just a question about the committees. How are you structuring them, like parents, staff? How would you characterize how the committees are going to be staffed?
The Student Achievement Committee is strictly an internal committee, and it needs to be that way. We're going to have myself, the principals, the APs, and some teachers, depending on what the target goal is. The Community Engagement Committee, we're looking for additional parents, active parent leaders that want to come in and help reach out to the local community. So we have some folks in mind. Some of those were parents that attended the strategic planning workshop because they were the heavy hitters. What we don't want to do is go to the heavy hitters that we already know exist because we don't want to spread them too thin. So there is plenty of room for parents to be on that type of committee and on the fundraising committee. The finance committees, we can certainly open that up to parents, but I think that should also be, we have internal members. A board member needs to sit on that along with myself and the principals. And, we can kind of, depending on how we want to do that, we can kind of squeeze that into the principals meeting that happens on Tuesdays because they're invited to attend once a month to give us updates. So it depends on what the board desires. Members from outside the community, the school community, I'm not opposed to that, but it would be up for discussion because I think those that have their hands and mind here in the system, with students in the system, would be the most valuable contributors. What else did I leave off? The strategic plan committee, I don't believe we had any parents on that committee, did we? Did we decide?
Internal. That was going to be you, me, and the principals.
And then the committee chair people. So my question, I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes.
I don't know that we've gotten that far where we've actually chosen committee members yet. So we're not sure.
Great, thank you.
But there are certainly opportunities for those people to sit on them.
Any questions on this side?
Dr. Manai, are you looking for example, someone from the local chamber to sit on some of those committees, the Horizon Council? What are you foreseeing when you're in your
No, I think
question?
I mean, I've seen that if you can find somebody let's say finance, not only who might chair the committee with a little bit of a finance background, but also some other committee members that might have that finance background. So that might provide some guidance, as well as fundraising. So you might find a very strong fundraiser that also is very interested in supporting us. Yeah, so that way you can maybe build out some processes a little faster because they bring that understanding and expertise to the committee.
Okay.
Mrs. Collins, I and the city attorney had kind of discussed the organization of some of the committees, and we've seen plenty of them in the past fall by the wayside so many times and nothing ever get achieved, right? So we're trying a little bit of a different approach to make it more organic, let these committees kind of form from the chair down by interested parties rather than appointing, and I think hopefully that can create some success for us on our committees this year.
We haven't done committees before, so we're starting small, and we'll branch out as we learn how we're going to, achieve our goals using these committees. So I understand what you're saying.
And the only other question is, now that we have a couple of years, how many years of graduates do we have that have graduated? Do we have about 3 years worth of graduates that graduated from high school, or?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Basically, do we have a pool of alumni yet that could be potentially a growing pool over the years that could potentially assist with fundraising or be their own fundraising?
I think we have the beginning of an alumni group as we see some of these teachers that we've educated and graduate and come back. Within the last, I want to say 2 to 3 years, we've seen that action happen. So we are in a place now where we can establish an alumni organization, and it will grow over time.
Great. Thanks.
Any other questions? All right.
Real quick.
Yes, ma'am?
I just had a real question, if we could circle back to ADVIT. I know when you were mentioning that it was going to sort of be, rather than having, especially regarding the resiliency portion of information, and rather than having that be a separate training, you wanted to sort of integrate that. And I was wondering, how is that, are you anticipating once the training takes place, is that going to be a lot that the teachers are going to have to do extra every day on that?
I don't know that it's necessarily an extra task. I mean, character development should happen all the time. Problem solving, problem-based learning, that should be a regular part of the curriculum. Compassion, empathy for others, working together in small groups, collaboration skills, that's part of resiliency. How do you believe it or not, taking turns, respecting others' opinion, those are those resiliency factors that shouldn't be difficult to integrate because it should be done on a regular basis anyway. So I don't foresee that being a problem, and I think a lot of the AVID components is cooperative learning and learning in small groups. We're implementing Kagan for that to help us with the collaborative learning, and I think it'll integrate very, very well with resiliency and AVID in what we're putting into play for next year.
Are you anticipating any sort of like in-classroom tracking, extra tracking that the teachers would have to do to make sure that they're being in compliance with AVID?
Well, resiliency is a funny topic because there are standards. There are some that are required to be taught. However, a parent can opt out by simply a letter to the principal asking to opt out of those resiliency standards. We're using something now that Lee County uses, but the students don't like it. They find it boring. So to answer your question, how will we track that? That's a very good question that I think the committee is going to have to come up with a response. And we've got to figure out how we make sure that they're being assessed on these certain skills. And the teacher can be assessed on collaboration tactics that she uses on the Marzano tool. So I guess the thought is how do we track, we can track the Marzano tool to make sure that they're using them. Well, it's something the committee will have to delve deep into that to figure out how that's going to be accomplished. There are ways, we need to outline those ways.
My hope is just that it doesn't create an additional burden. If there's a way that it's already being tracked somewhere else, maybe we can rope everything in.
Actually, we can examine lesson plans too, because lesson plans have to have the standards that are addressed on the lesson plans. So we could do a sampling of lesson plan. We'll work out the nitty-gritty for that.
Thank you.
In thinking about the Alumni Association and like creating that, I was wondering if there's a way, just something for you all to think about, if there's a way to combine the fundraising aspects, the idea of a gala, and the creation of an initial alumni association to gain interest in those becoming a member of the Alumni Association with a long-term goal of that actually being its own fundraising, meaning right now being a member would be free, but in the long term you can have different membership levels as
Right.
the alumni begin to age and start having funds to contribute back to
That
the
makes a
school.
lot of sense. Yes, it does. Mhm. Absolutely.
All right, thank you so much for that exceptional presentation.
You're very welcome.
So can I have a motion to approve our strategic plan 24 to 27?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second? Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to our city manager's report. Mr. Mason, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mark Mason, Financial Services Director. So a couple of things to talk about tonight. We just talked a little bit during the budget presentation with regard to the local capital improvement funds. I won't go through the presentation again, but I think you asked that I talk a little bit about what we're going to present to the City Council tomorrow. So the presentation tomorrow, basically gives a history of the charter schools going back, say, about 2015. 2015 is when I think certain changes were made at the state with regard to PICO funding, and in 2018, we started to notice that the charter school system was becoming a little bit more distressed. In 2019, 2020, so when we started talking a little bit about, how to keep the charter school doors open, essentially. And part of that discussion was, and the primary reason for that is the overall lease for the charter school system was a little around $3 million a year. The PICO funding had been decreased by the state to about $1.5 million a year, with a growth component to it after that. But be that as it may, it was $1.5 million a year. And the charter school had been paying, I guess out of its reserves, et cetera. And when we did an analysis of the charter school system, essentially you would have burned through all your reserves by about 2023 if we had not stepped in and made some adjustments to the existing lease as that you currently have today. And so the current existing lease called for the overall lease to be reduced to a fixed dollar value of $1.5 million for the charter schools, for the 4 schools, and the city would pick up the cost of the capital, and we also made a couple of changes to the charter, or in this case, the ordinance that provides for the charter school system to exist. And part of that change is that a lot of the administrative functions of the charter school system would revert to the city. In other words, we would pick up that cost, and in some cases there's a charge back to the city. Overall, the cost of the back office cost to the charter school system today runs at about 10% of the total cost of the charter school system on an annual basis, which is about $30 million. And so, which means that's about I think overall, the cost of custodial service, the cost of finance, the cost of human resource, the cost of basically all the back office work that we do for the charter school system, it runs at about $3 million a year. All right, so we fast forward to the legislative session that happened in 2023. And in 2023, the state legislature introduced a new concept, something called the local capital improvement, into the lexicon of the school system, providing for school districts to share with all charter schools within their jurisdiction their capital funding. Okay, so school districts have two different funding sources. They have a funding source that is made up of state funding as well as local millage funding, and that basically funds, you know, the operation of the school system. And so you have and that is what makes up the FEFP funding source for the state. And so for here in the county, there's a millage rate that you see on your tax bill if you own a home that calls for the Lee County School District, and of course the state contributes their piece, and the funding all comes down from the state. So the state, basically the local school district sends the money to the state, they divvy it up, send it back down as an FEFP money. And then they also have a 2 mil capital fund, which is restricted to 1.5 mils. But that's it, and so basically, the majority of the school districts in the state charge at the 1.5 mils, some are less, but for Lee County School Districts, it's 1.5 mils, and that's charged, and that is a local capital, it's for capital for the charter school system. The charter school system, it's for the school district, and the school district uses this to pay their debt service on their schools that they build. They utilize it for their cost of capital associated with their buses. They also, the cost of capital associated with their computer equipment, et cetera. And this is all governed by Florida statutes about what the funding can be used for. All right, so in 2023, the state adjusted the section, or 1013.62, I believe it is. They made the school districts now share this capital funding with charter schools. And so, and they began with a 20% contribution from the school districts, and it'll increase by 20% each year until you get to 100% in 2028. At 100%, what the LCI funding means to the, currently, if it was at 100%, what it would mean to the charter school, the Cape Coral Charter School system, was about $6.7 million. Now, that's a significant amount above and beyond the $1.5 million that has been coming down from PICO, that has actually increased to about $1.9 million in the current year, and we expect that it'll be a little over $2 million next year. But I believe, and although the state has not said this, that over time the PICO funding will actually decrease as the local capital improvement funds increase to get to the 100%. All right, so this funding is from my perspective, this is, and I think from the city's perspective, is a bit of a game changer for the charter school system. The charter school system, over the last 3 years since we made these changes, although the PICO funding has been increasing, the PICO funding then has been applied towards whatever capital is associated with the computer system, et cetera. But at the same time, a couple of 3 years ago, when we thought that we were only ever going to see $1.5 million and maybe a little bit of growth over time, we recommended to the board that you would, in order to replace your buses, you're going to have to get into the leasing system as opposed to the capital system. Because the PICO funding would have never funded the actual cost of any of the replacement of the buses, which are allowable by statute. However, leasing or paying, utilizing the PICO funding or the LCI funding is not available to pay for the leases because the statute actually only allows for purchase of transportation vehicles, not leasing transportation vehicles, which I find to be very odd, but that is what it says. So we're looking at it from that standpoint. So with that said, we're making the presentation to the City Council tomorrow that we revisit the lease. These funds are strictly available for capital only. The current lease and the current system that we have in place places no capital burden on the charter school system. The capital burden is placed on the city for the schools, as well as picking up the $1.7 million difference on the debt associated with the school system, or the 4 buildings that we built out there. And so with that said, our recommendation to the board will be, or to the city council will be, to revisit the lease, reopen the lease, return it back to its original shape and form to where the school system, the charter school system, would continue to lease it at full value. And then we would also put something in the lease agreement that would call out that the charter school system would have first choice of the LCI funds associated with the computer equipment, the school buses, and whatever else the state or whatever else the statute provides for that would be funded through the charter school system. At the same time, the city would continue to maintain the buildings for capital maintenance, which would be funded with the LCI funds, or whatever remaining funds that would be available after applying towards the capital associated with the charter school system would revert to the city to pay not only the current debt service on the 4 schools, but as well as doing any of the capital maintenance that is associated with the system. The schools, I mean, the buses would be bought through the school board, through the board today. You would own them. They'd be paid for the LCI funds. If for whatever reason the charter was ever closed, which I'm certainly hoping never happens, these buses that were purchased with the LCI funds would just simply revert back to the school district anyways, so they'd use them for whatever they needed to use them for. And so with that said, a couple of things that I'm going to bring up to you tonight. I'm not asking you to vote on it tonight because it wasn't part of the agenda, but we'll bring back a resolution associated with this. In order to take advantage of the full funding that's associated with the LCI, where we would recommend that you actually now purchase the buses. We have one lease that is outstanding, has about a $750,000 balance on it for the 8 buses that we purchased last year. And we have 6 more buses that are in the pipeline today at $836,000 that we would recommend that you purchase as well. And this will allow, I mean, when we get them, it's not today. And this will then allow us to utilize and take advantage of the full value of the LCI funding as it exists today. Buy these buses, take advantage of the funding, and then as we have to replace buses in the future, as you saw with the budget, we have 2 more that are identified for fiscal year 2025, and that we would simply purchase them with the LCI funds that are available to us and move on. So we will bring that back as a resolution for the board to approve, and then we would utilize those LCI funds that you just received and any future LCI funds for that particular purpose, with the clear understanding that in the future, as the LCI funds continue to grow, that whatever those funds are, we would utilize for not only the leases of the buildings, but as well as the purchase of buses and capital maintenance of the facilities. That's actually the only report that I have. Everything else is going well,
Good.
as far as I know.
You
Jackie
had
would have told me.
mentioned the lease at full value. What are you assessing full value as the lease?
I'm sorry?
You said that you would recommend,
Our current debt service payment on the 4 buildings is about $3.2 million a year. That would be the lease.
So that's what you're looking to recommend, is 3.2.
Yes, we would probably revert the language that's in the current lease back to the language that was originally in place in 2011.
Okay, great. So more of a comment and, open for discussion as well. But I think we're kind of at a crossroads here. We have to ask ourselves this question, I think. It's incumbent upon us. Do we want to continue to be an exceptional, highly performing school or an average school? Do we want to recruit the best and the brightest or settle for average teachers? We finally have an opportunity to financially do this, and I'd hate to see that thrown away. We've been through lean times in the past, and I think that has greatly affected the quality of our school. And I think that we have this amazing opportunity in front of us. So maybe there's some kind of middle ground there. And I hope you can consider that when you do make your recommendations to the board. That's just my opinion solely, though.
Well, I do want to make sure we understand the LCI funds are not available for hiring, paying teachers, or any of that other sort of thing. So it's.
Correct.
So when you say that
understand
you're
that,
looking
but
for
it
the best of
also
the brightest, I don't understand what that
Because
means.
it could leave funds in our general revenue that we could use for such things.
We would actually be paying for the capital portion of those things that you could utilize the funds for, which is what I talked about earlier when we were going through the budget. Right now, by picking up the total cost of the buses for purchase, as well as the capital for the computer systems, et cetera, that allows you to then offset whatever we've been using from the FEFP funding, which pays for teachers, et cetera, and that is the funding that would be available to you on an annual basis, whatever the numbers are. Correct, you are. What is available to you by statute, we have freed up. There's nothing more that's available within the charter school system, as I understand the statute, that would be available to you to free up.
Okay.
The capital side of things? Yeah. I mean, we can talk about it, yes.
Thank you. That last part was a very helpful clarification, one that I did not totally glean from the prior meeting. So in your perspective, you not only view this as net neutral, but you actually view this as a net positive for bottom line enhancement that can then be used. So basically taking money that we pay today for capital expenditures, we can now utilize the funding for capital expenditures and have freed up additional money to use it for things, for example, like teacher salaries.
You could.
Okay. Thank you.
So Mark, there was a benefit for us to lease, right, before. Now your position that there's a benefit for us to buy because these funds are available. But what if there was another use of those capital funds other than buying the buses?
All right, so there's a couple of things. So the statute's pretty clear that you can only use these funds, the PICO funds, LCI funds, doesn't really matter. It's those funds that are available to purchase transportation vehicles for transporting students to school or back wherever. And so it's very distinctive because in other sections of the statute, it says purchase, lease, lease, purchase, et cetera. But this one's very specific, it just says purchase. So in 2021, when I recommend you go in the leasing system, we thought that we were going to be in a limited capacity funding from the beginning. You never had the money to actually go out there and purchase. You would have been using more of your FEFP funding to purchase the buses whereas you were leasing them basically at $186,000 a year for 8 buses. Now, that $186,000 cannot be paid for with the LCI funds. It can only be paid for with the FEFP funds. So by purchasing buses, now you can use the LCI funds, and you have no impact, so you're freeing up the $186,000 to go towards something else.
Right, right. And then, so purchasing the buses, that's understood. And now we'll also be increasing the lease from 1.5, 1.6 to 3.2 or whatever. So the lease, so now not only are we going to be purchasing buses, which is by requirement, right? The funds are available for that. Now we're going to be increasing our lease back up to what it was that gave us heart attacks for the last, few years before we had the lease change. Now, the increase in the lease cost, what's the rationale for that that's the only option of how to use those funds?
It is. So let me ask you the question. I think, because we keep coming back to the idea that if all of this money sat in your funds, I think the real question then would be, what would you use it for, from a capital standpoint? Okay.
Going back to our last conversation, I would weigh the value and the trade-offs of growing our system.
Okay.
And growth could be in multiple ways, and that's capital. So here, if you've got this absolute need for growth, and now you have these funds that potentially could accommodate, I'm okay if at the end of the day we say, you know what, it's not going to work. But I think an analysis would need to be done to say, what would it take for us to grow? And maybe there's more stars that would need to align, but what would it take for us to grow? And before we make a decision of saying 1.5, 1.6, back up to 3.2, without having that assessment, I think it would be hard for us as a board to say, wow, we just now put ourselves, to your point earlier, back to where we were 3 or 4 years ago without any opportunity for growth because we've just re-signed a lease that's doubled our costs. That's my concern. And either way, this board has the authority to make whatever decision and make a recommendation to the city council. But going in it with your eyes open is better than lamenting over what you just gave up, right?
Okay, so let's take that a couple of steps further. Let's assume that the board makes a recommendation to the council to expand the system, which means we'd have to build another building, which means that the city would issue the debt because the city would own the building, and then there would be an additional lease of something for the debt service associated with that on top of the 1.5 million. Would that be accurate?
Sure.
So clearly, from the current amount of the 1.7, which is being funded by the city, so the city would continue to pay for the original buildings at $1.7 million, but we'd expand the system to add another building that the LCI funds would pay for. So we'd have the initial 1.5, we'd skip 1.7, then we'd pick up some other number. But that's correct? Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I understood that.
And we pick up additional students to offset some of the revenue that would be
Okay,
needed, right?
and if we did that, we'd pick up those additional students, and those additional students would probably pay for the debt service, but we still have the original debt service that's outstanding, that the current system can actually afford to pay.
Right.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that that I understood where we were going with it.
Right. And even if this situation didn't occur of this new funding that's available, I think it's still our challenge as a board to address what are we going to do for growth. So regardless of what this new funding is resulting in, we have a commitment to our parents that says, you start in elementary school, we'll put you through middle school, we'll put you through high school. We've never had to do a lottery system before, and now that's a high probability, right?
It is.
And as someone who's been in education for 30 years, you've got a world-class system here. I mean, it is undisputedly a world-class system. And to not be able to have your son or daughter go all the way through in that world-class system and say, nope, you're out at middle school, nope, you're out at high school, when we have the opportunity for growth, I think that's our challenge. That's our challenge.
I think we also have to take into consideration that we are considering a sports complex, which is also capital improvement, which possibly some of this money that would be going to the lease could go to as well.
Correct.
Thus offsetting and saving the city maybe some funds as well. So, and we speak a lot about the city's funding this and the city's funding that, but we also have to remember we are part of the city. We were created by the city for the city. We are part of the city, right? We're part of the infrastructure. We're woven into it now. We work together with synergy. So I want to remind everybody of that as well, that it's not city and us. We're together. We are the city, right? So, Ms. Michaels.
Mr. Mason, I'm curious if you have sort of any pulse on the city council currently, and you could speak to this as well, but.
Actually, the city council's sitting right there,
Well,
so.
just one member. But you're ultimately making a recommendation to them on a finance piece, and I think that they will probably, I just don't mean any disrespect to you, but I assume that they will defer to you over Mr. Long on a financial matter. I'm sure they will hear you out, but yeah. My question to you is, do you get any sense that there is a desire to grow the system, to build another school at some point, to increase the enrollment, or is it more of a feeling of harvest? Keep it as it is, it's good the way it is.
Actually, I've never had a conversation with the city council on the matter at all, with regard to growing the system. Having been here when it was started, it was always meant to be, a K through 12 system. We created a K through 12 system. There was never and the primary reason at the time that we built this system was a lack of seats within the school district. Within 3 years of us building the first 2 schools, Lee County came in and built 4 schools. So after that, it was, there was no more a lack of seats in the schools. So there was never a discussion to grow it beyond what it is today.
It just seems like there's an opportunity at the moment to utilize capital funds for that potential. And I would hate for us to miss it.
If you were looking at growing it, we would look at it from, as we did when we built the original schools, and we calculated what the PICO funding would be available at the time until the state changed it in the middle of the teen years. We had built those schools with the clear understanding that the PICO funding would pay for the schools. And that was never in doubt, right up to the point where when we built the high school. After that, there was, I guess they built the gym a couple of years later, but when we calculated out the PICO funding after we built the high school, we had tapped out the maximum amount at the time. And so, that should have held, if it had held true right up to this point, we'd still be where we were with the lease that we had, in place. With the state changing the level of PICO funding to a more flat fixed dollar value of about $1.5 million a year, that changed the nature of what was being paid, to the city, during that period of time to pay off the schools. But if you're looking at potentially expanding it, now you look at how many students are we talking about? What is that student ratio, back against that 1,900,000 and some odd, $1,900 per FTE, and what's that calculation that you can expect from the school district for the capital side, and will that pay for a new school? Because that's what needs to pay for the new school.
Yep. Do you think that's realistic at all?
I don't today. Cost of construction, I mean, we'd have to look at what that would mean, but probably not.
It just seems to me that that maybe that analysis, even if it's brief, would be good to know, because ultimately the recommendation could be an alternative.
The recommendation from me is to reopen the lease and recover what we have been paying and change how we're going to be recovering from the original 4 schools. The funding is now available to actually pay for the original 4 schools. I don't know that I would do anything different from that. It wouldn't have anything particularly to do with expanding the system one way or the other. When you're talking about the dollar value we're talking about, if the city council elects that they want to expand the system, then they're going to direct us to go do the analysis of what that means, in terms of funding that we would receive from the LCI funding and whether that would pay for the schools going forward. We haven't done that today.
I understand the original intent of our school, but I think it has morphed into something much more than ever anticipated. And that was roughly 15 years ago with a different city council, different residents. So I think it's, worth saying and considering as well.
I would not just, tell you not to consider it, but that's not what I plan on, presenting to the city council. If Councilmember Long wants to bring that up, however it works.
Sure.
We'll do what we need to do, and whatever the direction of the city council is, that's the direction we go in.
Councilmember Long?
I think a more worthwhile use of this board's resources would be not to try to alter Mr. Mason's recommendation, but to maybe figure out amongst ourselves what you would like the board's recommendation to be, and then make a designee bring that recommendation forward to council tomorrow independently of Mr. Mason. That would be my recommendation, rather than trying to barter with him back and forth as to how you would prefer that he propose his recommendation. With that being said, I think it's also important to note that that the points are well taken with regards to expansion. I personally, this is just me, not on behalf of council, I think it's an insurmountable task in one bite. I think it's more likely to tackle it from a long-term perspective, as Board Member Minaya had indicated. But I think the fight, for lack of a better term, is with the residents. You said there's different residents, but I think there's still a sentiment among those residents that they were promised, quote unquote, many years ago, that it was going to be a self-sustaining system. And so I think to that end, to use Board Member Michael's term, harvest, more of a maintenance mode, is the collective mindset. I can't tell you, and I'm a strong advocate for this system. I hope that comes across. But I think it's important to reiterate again that we as council members, again, putting my council hat on, represent the residents as a whole. And so I think that the fight isn't with the council or with Mr. Mason, but I think with the residents and changing their sentiment. And I don't know what more the school in and of itself can do. They're an exceptional program, and the results speak for themselves. But I can't tell you how many calls and emails I get just randomly out of the blue from individuals, particularly around tax time, complaining about what they misunderstand to be charter taxes when it's the school board taxes, and frankly, in my opinion, the short-sighted opinion that they don't have children, and so why are they paying these taxes? And so with that mindset, when we talk about council, we make our decisions based on the collective body and the representation of those minds. Those are the minds that, in my opinion, we need to change if we need backing from council in order to bring forward what I think we're trying to discuss here. So, not sure that it's incredibly helpful, but just some context from council.
That's what our community engagement committee is kind of tasked with doing.
Sure. Thank you.
On that recommendation, I was going to speak on behalf at the council meeting tomorrow.
I think that's a great recommendation. And in any event, presenting in front of the board or sharing our perspective in front of the board is always helpful. And my guess is over time, we probably should do that more frequently than less, right? And this is a perfect opportunity.
And we hope that Councilmember Long during his sentiments during the meeting can also reiterate, and it doesn't have to be your opinion, but the board will help hold. I think that he's going to be meeting tomorrow anyways. We have the interest in presenting on our behalf.
I do plan to be at the meeting. I know we discussed this a little bit earlier. I'm happy to do that if you all want to draft something. I know it's a little bit short notice, but I would certainly present that on behalf of the board and not as my personal recommendation, although I do have an opinion here, and I do agree that there's an opportunity here by not increasing the lease by $1.7 million immediately and maybe doing it more slowly over time with those funds being redirected and helping us with compensation, things like that with the operating fund. So my answer is yes, I'm happy to speak during public input tomorrow at the 9 a.m. council, the whole meeting. If you all tonight, I don't know how we would draft what we want to say or bullet points, and it doesn't have to be a written speech. I'm happy to just share specific bullet points, and I can articulate that on behalf of the board if that's what y'all would like me to do.
You appreciate that?
Second.
The motion is to have, what is the recommendation? The recommendation, not have the lease restructured.
We'll make sure that we connect tonight on what the appropriate verbiage would be for. Or, I'm sorry.
We can have Mrs. Kathleen involved, and we can back this up, collective thought.
Or we can hash it out right now. I just want to make sure we write something down. Yeah. So.
Okay. I think bullet points are consistent as we had previously stated that we think that said funds that would go towards the restructuring of the lease or the increase in the lease could be better utilized or considered for future growth. That could look like maybe expansion, that could look like sports complex, that could look like many other things that needed to pay actually to that next level.
I think that we should consider context. We have a waiting list of, is it 1,000? Adding all the schools up. We have a waiting list of 1,000 students, elementary to middle to high school. The context is that Lee County, this isn't me, this is documented through the Economic Development Office, is growing. It has projections of growth between 20 and 28,000 students in Lee County over the next 8 years. And again, this is documented, 25% of the population resides in Keene. So we are in a course next growth mode. And the last piece, the last context, maybe Mrs. Collins could share our actual promise of what we share with, what we've shared in the past with parents in terms of how their child care should go through.
Since my promise has always been that once you enter into the system, you are guaranteed a seat for graduation. It's been our mantra for the last 18 years. That's why we've had parents that slept outside the gate to get to BBK, because they knew that once they got to BBK, it was an easier to get into BBK than kindergarten or any other grade level. That holds true, that parents, the reason our system is so successful, based on survey data, based on accreditation data, is that they're guaranteed seat.
Can I ask, so I'm obviously taking down notes here, but would it be appropriate for staff, for Ms. Collins or Ms. Paul Evans to, by tomorrow morning, send some of these bullets? Is that something that we would be able to do Mr. Attorney, okay. I would prefer that I have something more than just my scribbled notes as we're all talking here, so I appreciate that.
Do all the members feel that we've covered the points we would like to portray to the council?
I think the one additional point is that, that our recommendation ultimately is that the city council not make a decision to increase the lease, but instead utilize some time and resources to evaluate the viability of utilizing the capital funds for other opportunities. I think Mr. Mason was clear that he wasn't sure that it was feasible, but it would have to be looked at. And so that, I think that's ultimately.
And just for my clarification, because I'm relatively new here to the board, the lease is renewed every fiscal year? Is that, I see Mr. Mason's coming back up. Is the lease up for renewal, or is
No.
it just be opening up the lease? So could we recommend that it be, that we not address the lease for another year until fiscal year 26?
It's a 5 year. So this would be amended.
Okay.
You can recommend whatever you want.
On year one of the 5 year lease, correct? That was just restructured.
I think it would be a good idea that we go back and we look at the statute regarding the need for lotteries. When we opened up the school system in 2004, and the lottery system was a requirement, it was usually to get into the system if you were not already in the system. And so I think it's something that we might want to revisit, because we did have that system in place in the beginning, that if your son or daughter enters the charter school system in kindergarten at the time, I think it's still kindergarten, right? Okay. That, they could go all the way through. And if they're going all the way through, then the lottery system usually only kicks in when you have openings. And so there actually has to be openings in the system, so, and you have a waiting list, and the lottery is on the waiting list, not the existing students. So I just want to make sure that.
The lottery system kicks in when you have more applicants than you have seats.
Right, and so there's no applicants for somebody transitioning from, 8th grade to 9th grade? They're already there. They're in the system. They're just going from 8th grade to 9th grade.
Yes, but now the matriculation rate is so high that we don't have enough seats for internal matriculation.
So that could possibly be, but it's always been, it's bigger down to smaller, because there's people leave and et cetera, et cetera. So in any event, that may be something that we have to look further at. I don't know that you want to start a lottery system with, if you've got, 700 students that are matriculating into the 9th grade. I don't think that's how many you have, but I'm just saying. And you only have 600 seats. What 600 start, go? That we can probably set up rules for that. I'm just saying that I think we should look at the statute about how this lottery system works and set up the appropriate rules that if you've been in the system since kindergarten, that you have first priority. It's just a suggestion, just a recommendation. I'm not arguing with what they're talking about. I don't want to take away from the idea that if you started there in kindergarten, that you have a seat all the way through the system if you're in the system. And I don't think that should be removed from the equation.
Mark and I are going to, Mark, our city attorney, and I will be reviewing the charters. It's written in the charters how the lottery is to work.
It's not in 26.
So we might have to amend the charters. But we're going to research it to see, maybe not.
I've read it in chapter 26, but it was very vague and kind of one line.
The charter that we hold between the city and the school district of Lee County. It's not chapter 26.
But I think I did read it in 26 someplace, yeah?
It may be in chapter 26.
It's just very,
But the charter that the city holds with the district is going to be the controlling
that'll be
document.
superseding.
And there are 4 of them.
Okay.
We could possibly have 1, and then it would probably alleviate the problem.
Please. Aside from this, right, there's something called Net Promoter Score, right? Net Promoter Score. And Net Promoter Score is used when you would ask your teachers, you would ask your principals, you would ask staff, would you send your child here? Right? Would you send your child to Oasis? You're the teacher, you're the principal, would you send your child to Oasis? I don't think we've ever done that, but my guess is that in most cases, it's going to be pretty high yes, right? Unfortunately, and I made this recommendation when I was on a Lee County school committee, I made the recommendation for Net Promoter Score. And in knowing some of the teachers there, I don't think it would be too high for Lee County schools, the Net Promoter Score, right? And I only say that because you've developed this incredible system. How do we get more kids through it? From a workforce perspective, we all need the best qualified, educated, whether they just complete high school or move on. We need the best that we can get here. And Oasis has the formula. The workforce, the businesses, we're relying on our systems to make it work. And this is one of those systems that's actually working. I trust this a lot more than I trust the larger system. So there is some level of a responsibility back to the community that we produce the best workforce possible. And you have the formula here.
Just have one other point of clarification. I obviously was not here when the lease was renewed for 5 years, but I assume that obviously it's in the lease that the city can reopen discussion about the lease at any time. You know, usually when you sign a lease, that's your plan and your outlook for the next 5 years. So that may be a valid argument for us to say, even though these new funds are coming in with the LCI, we don't have to wait 5 years, but we think we should wait, at least one additional year to see how things play out before we consider amending the lease.
Is there any other points that we wish to make through member piece? All right.
Are you clear on what the motion is?
As long as Ms. Paul Evans has taken some notes and I have my notes, I will speak tomorrow morning at the council of the whole meeting on behalf of the board. I'll make it clear that I'm speaking as a collective body, and our recommendation is that we would like to see the lease maintained as status quo, and at least for one more year while we assess. And I have some notes about other capital opportunities and growth and things like that. So I assume that those will be the notes that I receive from staff tonight or tomorrow morning, first thing before the 9 a.m. meeting.
So can I request an amendment to the motion that board member Pease can get together and coordinate with the clerk of the board so he is clear on what he's going to say tomorrow?
Absolutely. So may we have a motion to allow member Peace to coordinate with Clerk Evans, Kathleen Paul Evans, so that he may present a succinct recommendation to council.
So I motion to amend my prior motion. That's it.
So we need a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you for helping clarify, of course. Mr. Mason, thank you so much for your clarification on the matter and for presenting as well. We do value and appreciate you.
Thank you. You're
welcome. That brings us to item number 11, Councilmember Long's report. If we have a report, if not.
Yeah, it's going to be more or less the same. A lot of the discussion revolving the council along with the charter school and where those intermingle is going to be with the LCI funds and how we handle that discussion tomorrow. Just another thing to keep in mind, and I believe, Chair, that you were the one that brought it up, is that also kind of looming over all this is the point that I had brought toward my last discussion here before you guys regarding council, as far as we were trying to get together with you all, with this board, to discuss how we want to handle the capital outlay for the ball field. And so that's sort of another thing that we're going to have to try to consider and coordinate in addition. And the reason why I do not have an update on that is because we felt it would be worthwhile to have, the council would have a discussion on the LCI funds before we move forward with any discussions on the ball field.
Well, I can say that, me personally, sincerely, I appreciate that we're being considered to be part of these discussions, because I think it's important. You know, we live, breathe the school, we know
Sure.
it, so I'm glad that council has afforded us that opportunity, so thank you for, I think, maybe spearheading that a little bit as well.
Sure.
As we had stated before, if you could please, in your capacity as liaison between the boards, kind of reiterate what we had spoken to, that Mr. Peace will say, and also if you could make them aware of our new status of being a highly effective school as well would be great.
Got it.
Because they, I think, would love to hear some of the progress that we're making.
Sure. Yes, sir. I sure will. I'd be happy to.
Pass it on, so thank you, sir.
And that's it.
All right, that brings us to our foundation report. Mr. Cerny, are you back there? I see you, come on up. Still tired from all that dancing?
A long speech. Gary Cerny, Foundation President. How you guys doing? So, I would like to just kind of give a quick summary of what we've actually done this year, and also, I'd like to proceed that with, I second Ms. Collins' comment about the Lighthouse Awards. It was, it's always special, but it was extra special, and everybody knows in this time of payroll increase needs, to address the elephant in the room, it's very needed. So very positive, and thank you for everybody that showed up, and I'm sure that anybody that didn't had a good reason. That being said, sorry, I meant that in the nicest possible way. The first thing I would like to do is let you know, kind of give you an update of which, you know, as most of you I hope know, we issue grants, mini grants throughout the school year. We have historically done academic only, and then we open sports and clubs to pending having the funds to do so, typically later in the year. Well, last year there was such a huge need for sports and clubs money that we decided to just include that in our general year-long grant cycles. Yeah, if I said that correctly. So, that being said, I'm going to run through this list if that's okay. And for the academic grants, just so you know, some of these cool projects that are coming out, some of them are like $200, some are like $3,000, but they vary. They're all over the board. But we've had for Angela Schaefer for Oasis High School, we did a super duper online library for speech program. And for Kelly Henry Herbst, Oasis Middle School, we did the Keep Science Clean and Safe program. For Jamie Ayers at OMS, we did the Cape Literacy Festival. Diane Sporney, Amazing Owl Pellets. That was an interesting conversation. It's actually a very cool science-related thing. For Tiffany Brown, we did classroom rugs. That was actually like $1,700. So we're not, this stuff sounds like it's all $5 stuff, but a lot of it's well into the 4-digit, realm. So Anne-Marie Davis, Reluctant Readers No More. John Odmanson, who writes amazing grants, by the way. If you ever need help writing grants, I hate to volunteer him, but he is really, really good at it. Spiro Mini Robotics Program, at least partial funding for that. Miss Lori McLean, facilitator, STEM Book in a Bag. Miss Medico, OEN, Ramona Beasley Read Aloud Book Program. We actually, let's see, Culinary Arts for Mead? I think that says Mead, there's a typo. Mead Culinary Arts, we bought a microwave and some small appliances. For OEN, we got a bunch of books. For Casal at the high school, we bought a whole bunch of calculators. And then, yeah, so it's about 25 grand right there. So, and then for the sports and clubs, we did OMS theater, sound equipment. We did Andrea Kepke garden supplies. You guys ever seen that garden out there? She helped rebuild it with a buddy, and that was that's a cool, positive little venture for, you know. Anyway, Corey Bexfield. Oh, I'm sorry. So for Oasis High School basketball, we bought new jerseys. We did the same thing for the girls basketball team. OHS baseball pitching machine. Again, not a small purchase, but a much needed one if you play baseball. OHS football, bunch of practice gear. You like how I precede everything with bunch. Try to make it look bigger. You know, Cone Cannon. I'm sorry, and the last three were for Corey Bexfield, Frank Haba, Jason Grain for the football, and then Con Cannon. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Entertainment Club. Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't do that one. Sorry. For the National Honor Society, they have like a candlestick ceremony. We bought the supplies for that. Alvarez drama makeup for Lion King performances. Guffey costumes, props. We bought uniforms for the boys soccer team, for the varsity soccer team. We bought $3,000 in safety mats for the cheerleaders because they needed them, so they didn't hurt themselves. For Picciolo, for OHS, we bought a big speaker, and we got all kinds of emails yesterday saying how crazy loud it is, which is good. That's what we were going for. And that's it. So that may or may not mean anything to you, but it's a lot of stuff, a lot of free stuff, and it's all necessary. We do not say yes to every grant. We've been getting steadily more and more applications, which is really nice to see. But you know, some of these teachers, they really care about their projects, and the fact that they're putting this much effort forth in addition to their daily task it's pretty cool. So we feel like we on the backside should really give it some serious thought, and you know, and utilize our funding that we have as best we can. So there's that, and this is kind of an end-of-year rundown, by the way. So then I'd also like to acknowledge our board members, if I can. All of us, some of us to an extreme level, we circumvent a lot of the things that we need to do in life to actually do this, just like you do. Thank you, by the way. So I'd like to just list the board members because they'll work very hard to hopefully, you know, put a little extra cherry on our Sunday. So Jen Hope Bellis is our vice president. If you don't know her, I don't really know what you're doing here. She does a lot. I mean that nicely. Ms. Jennifer Hoagland, our treasurer right there, she's incredible, absolutely incredible. Chris DeMoya, treasurer and grant coordinator. When you get the good news about your grants, she's the one to write them after we vote on them. Janelle Dolan is actually the old high school booster club president that we have. We absorbed the booster club at the beginning of the year, by the way. And so we took her on as a board member. So she's the foundation booster chair. And her and Sherry Wumbolt, who's also a member, we took her on. They're running all the concessions for the Oasis High School. That's doing really well, and I'm very, very happy to say that we actually found a donor that has donated almost every bit of that food, which, hey, 100% profit. I've had a business 17 years. I wish my return was 100%. But so let me get back to these board members. Samantha Richardson, Ms. Heather Dinkle, Dina Pollard, David Condi, and that's our board. And then we have a whole bunch of volunteers. We had a Lighthouse committee, which is completely separate. We don't pick the teachers. We don't even really know who they are until the very, very, very end. So anyway, and the other stuff, we do have scholarships coming up. Our scholarship committee is meeting next Tuesday to review the scholarships that we do for the high school, which is another thing that we're doing. And just to get back to the Booster Club, I want to touch on, I know this is the longest report I've ever done, I apologize. Got to make up for all the short ones. So we had a little pilot year, right, this year for the Booster Club. I think we brought in a little over $20,000 in the first probably 2-3 months. It was all through booster memberships, the banners. That's not including concessions money. Nothing to do with concession money. That's separate. And what we're doing is we actually have sub-accounts for every single team, which again, Jen Hoagland is doing an amazing job with. But there's $20,000 extra for athletics right now that wasn't there before. I mean, some of it, that made some money, but that's pretty significant. So we've been able to make a pretty big difference. Like my son wrestles. I mean, we bought stuff for that. Like, I mean, just you name it. So we've done a lot there, and that's really about it, I think. Just want to kind of let you know what we do. And I did want to touch on one thing, though, with the alumni thing, and maybe this is not the appropriate time, but this is something that was actually brought up probably about a year ago when we were dealing with the booster club absorption, if you will. That a lot of the time that does actually come with a booster club, so we'd possibly be willing to chat about that, so there aren't duplicated efforts. Obviously up to you. You guys run the show, but that is something that was brought up, and I think it is very valuable. It's a little bit on the premature side because there's only a 3-year. They're still trying to get their feet wet. Some of these new grads, but that should be huge, and that should not be left behind because that is huge. The more research I do, and I do a lot of research with different foundations and booster clubs and school systems, and that's how it's done generally from what I've seen, and it is huge. And the better the school, which this one's awesome, the more money you get because the more money they're making. So huge proponent of that. Any questions?
As always, thank you, Mr. Cerny,
Thank you.
for your presentation. I would like to, again, thank the foundation for everything they do, all the countless hours that your board members put in. We kind of understand a little bit about that too, but you guys go above and beyond, rather than spending some time with the family or doing things, you're spending it on foundation business. And I think that the foundation greatly improves our student life. So we do appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hoagland. In my haste, I'm sorry, do we have questions for you? Please, I'm sorry.
I just have a very quick comment.
Yes.
This has been a long meeting, so I'll make it very brief. Thank you for everything that you guys are doing for the foundation, you and Jennifer and everyone else. The Lighthouse Awards was amazing. I cried during one of the speeches, literally. If anyone was unable to attend this year or in the past, I highly recommend it next year. It is moving and wonderful, and it's a lot of fun.
In my haste, I did skip chairman's report. I apologize. How do I go back to chairman's report? Perfect. Any objection? I'm going to keep it as quick as possible because I had already touched on most of what my report was going to be anyways. It's really just some things that I have to do. The only thing I'm going to bring up is I had asked Member Long to be the chair of the Finance Committee, but unfortunately, after discussion with legal and city council, they decided that it was a conflict of interest. But I really want to thank him for his consideration. I truly do appreciate that you were willing to do that. In his stead, I would like to appoint Chairman Michaels to be the Finance Chair. With that being said, again, we're going to try to keep it organic, but if you could try to come up with the times of your meetings, how often they're going to be, and who will be on said committees by our next meeting, and let us know. That would be greatly appreciated as well. Give you a little time to get your bullpen together,
Yep.
right?
Will do. Thank you.
And that is it for the chair's report. Next is staff comment, which I do not see any. We'll move to unfinished business, which we have none of. We will move on to agenda 16A, new business. Ms. Collins?
New business. This Cape Coral charter schools are in desperate need of a new intercom system. We have one at each school. They are old. They were built at the time the schools were constructed, and they need to be updated desperately. At the middle school, we have, and the elementary and the high school, we have intermittent communication. Tends to be a safety issue when you're making a safety announcement and you can't hear what's being said. So, to make a long story short, we would like to request to piggyback on the state of North Carolina in order to purchase this system. The cost of the system is $513,000 and change. We wanted to add in a contingency of $26,000 and change for a total of $540,000. I'm requesting that the board approve the total dollar amount of $540,000 in order to move forward with the intercom project.
Open it for discussion. Intercom, I think, is it's crucial for the safety of the school. We need to be able to notify all 4 schools at once when something's happening. We know in this day and age that time is of the essence. So that being said, any more discussion on the intercom system? No? May I get a motion to approve $540,000 for the intercom system?
So moved.
Any objections? All in favor?
Aye.
Was there a second?
I'm sorry, did we not have a second? I apologize. Thank you, sir. We have a second. Any opposed? None, seeing none, motion carries. We'll move on to item 16B.
16B is the request for the approval to authorize the engagement letter for a new auditing company called Malden and Jenkins LLC. The estimated dollar value is $23,500 for FY24, $24,300 for FY25, and $25,000 for FY26, for a 3-year total of $72,800.
Any discussion on item 16B?
Motion, right?
May I get a motion for 16B, please? Motion to approve. May I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. That brings us to 16C.
For item 16C, earlier in our budget workshop, we discussed doing a study, an overall study for our school system, so that we have an outside source coming in and giving us a good outline of where we are and where we need to be. I would like to suggest that we table C and D with one exception, because there is one position in our school system that I feel that we can't wait. We need to make an adjustment to the base salary now, and I'll explain why. This position is the social worker position. We have one for the system. It's a highly valued job that is kept very, very busy. Tiffany Corbin is our current social worker, and she was functioning on a Master's of Social Work credential until just recently, where she is now doing an internship so that she can be a licensed certified social worker. So with that being the case, she is now able to, even though she's in the middle of an internship position, she is able to counsel students and provide therapy for them, and provide student evaluations, which she was not able to do before. And she is now able to take over the responsibility that we had to contract outside of the system for, which is therapy counseling sessions for individuals and small groups. So each school every year budgets about $2,000 for outside services for therapy sessions if needed, and we no longer need to do that. So that's about $8,000 in savings. However, I would like to bump Tiffany's salary up to the base salary that's comparable to the Lee County School District's base salary of $57,500, because she has gained these new credentials, because she can offer additional services to our system, and she is offsetting the cost of the outside contractual agreement that we need to have per statute for these therapy services. So to make a long story short, I would like to bump Tiffany Corbin up to base salary of $57,500 starting next school year.
So I think we will bring this into 2 things. So
And do we need a motion to amend the agenda?
yes. So we will Can I get a motion to table C and D with the exception of the social worker position?
Yeah, motion to amend the agenda to modify items 16C and 16D with the exception of evaluating the salary for the social worker.
Second?
Do we have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries to table. Now we will get to voting to increase the base pay salary to the 57.5. Do we have any discussion on that? I think that with her new qualifications as a licensed certified social worker, that is going to be a cost savings to the school, so we don't outsource. I know it is extremely difficult to find social workers in our current setting, so I think that this is money well spent. So, do we have any other discussions on this, please?
Just very briefly, 100% on board and of, a salary increase here, but I did have a question. Are we thinking just one person is going to be able to sort of manage it for all the schools? That's just that, and I don't know how many individuals were being outsourced. That would be the only question that I would have if we're going to no longer be outsourcing.
I would like to try one more year with one social worker. I want to see how we get through the year with her doing these small groups and the outsourcing. If we find at the end of this year we need to budget for 2, we can certainly do that. We have to remember they're very hard to find. They're not there any longer. So let's try to. So we'll try to move forward on 1 because we've budgeted for 1 next year. And if we find that we're struggling, we can come back to the table because we'll be doing budget amendments. But I'd like to start with 1.
If it became too much for her, would we still have the capacity to outsource in any way? Or would it just
We could,
all
yes.
fall? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic question. Any other discussion? Great. So may I have a motion to increase the base pay for the social worker to 57.5? Have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That being said, motion carries. That brings us to final board comment. We'll start with the parent representatives down here.
The session today was very informative. I will relay all this information to the parents.
Thank you.
See if they have any comments to bring forward.
That'd be great. That's what we always look for is the feedback from the parents, right? It's important. So thank you for doing that. So we'll start down here. Ms. Hoagland? Okay. Mr. Peace?
I want to echo the sentiments about the Lighthouse Awards. Awesome job. Thank you all for a great event. There was a teacher that really touched me. She said she had been teaching at one school in the school district for over 20 years. And I think there are a lot of teachers in the school district right now who are not willing to make the leap to something new and fresh. But I also had a conversation with an administrator who indicated that this has rejuvenated that person's life, and so it's a testament to what is happening within this small oasis. So I want to say congratulations on a really job well done with a great event. I also want to give a shout out to DJ Hopper. So if you weren't there for the last hour, he had the place bumping for sure, and it was pretty awesome. So I think we should have him DJ the future board meetings, maybe here with some music to keep it more lively. But thank you to everyone who was involved, and I know that was a last-second change, I think, because the DJ couldn't, based on the date change and stuff like that, so thank you for stepping up to that. And I have one other thing. I don't want to open up a can of worms about the discussion for the COW meeting tomorrow, but I did just look up something that might help streamline some of our language and how we address this. So in Mr. Mason's presentation tomorrow, which is currently posted, on slide number 13, he is going to present 3 options. Option 1A is no change to the lease between the city and the charter school system. And then the sub-bullet there is, city continues to pick up 53% of the cost of the debt service and 100% of capital expenses. Another sub-bullet is, all capital funding will accrue to the Cape Coral Charter School Authority. That's option A, no change. Option B is amend the lease between the city and charter school system. Sub-bullet there is recover full cost of debt service and 100% of the capital funding for capital expenses, net of buses and IT capital costs. And then option C is to look at alternative service delivery for charter schools. So I think if I am correct here, tomorrow with the agenda, the public input will be before his presentation. So it's going to make sense from a succinctness standpoint for me to say that he is going to present 3 options or share 3 options. Our position is that we go with option A, read that option, right, and then share the supporting information. So I just wanted to share that with Ms. Paul Evans. I don't know if we need to take a motion to throw that in there. Those are my comments.
Objection, that sounds perfect. Councilmember Long?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Member Michaels?
No more for me.
All right. Move on down to Dr. Knight.
Just great to see the strategic plan in action and in all its living colors. So congratulations to the entire team that contributed to making that to its final state. And look forward just to hearing more about the dashboard and seeing the updates as we move forward with our strategic plan. Thank you.
Just very quickly, I'm glad to see that we're not changing the motto. We're doing what we need to do. We should be so proud of ourselves as a system, and we just need to continue moving forward. And I was very happy when I heard you were, Ms. Collins, say we're not changing a thing. So.
No comment today. Thank you.
So I will reiterate kind of what I said last meeting, that I really appreciate and enjoy the dialogue that this board is having. I think that I've sat on this board for a while, and we've never had such a collective thought process and just good discussion. And I would love to keep it that way. So I'm grateful that everybody's speaking and asking questions, and they're inquisitive and informative. So thank you all for doing that. So I'd also like to thank our city stakeholders for taking time out of their schedules and coming and sitting with us till 7:30, 7:45 at night as well. It is appreciated, truly. School administration and staff as well. You're all here, not getting overtime, and rather than spending time with your families, you're here doing the business of the school, and that is greatly appreciated as well. I'd like to close on saying that I'd like to congratulate all the Lighthouse winners. I think they were all well-deserved, well thought out, and well-picked. So thank you, and congratulations to the winners. That's a big deal. So that being said, our next regular meeting is going to take place at the Oasis High School. We have changed our start date for the budget workshop number 2 to 4:30 p.m., followed by our regular governing board meeting at 5:30 p.m. That being said, adjourned.